Welcome to the Total Wellness Solutions Academy online radio network. I'm Dave, and our mission is simple. We help families make informed decisions that strengthens their overall financial well-being.
Welcome to this quick primer for the Total Wellness Solutions Academy network. Today, we're stripping away all the confusion around direct-to-consumer business models so you can understand what consumer direct marketing actually is and, why it absolutely matters for modern commerce. First, let's talk about the supply chain. Think of traditional retail like a really expensive game of telephone. Products bounce from manufacturers to distributors, warehouses, and finally to retail stores. Everybody takes a cut of your money to fund their heavy overhead. But consumer direct marketing completely bypasses those middlemen. It literally hangs up that phone and builds a direct, private line straight from the factory right to your front door. Second, you might be asking yourself, so if there are no retail stores and no big ad campaigns, how does this actually work? Well, it's totally built on membership-based access. It thrives purely on word-of-mouth referrals and personal use. And this is absolutely crucial. It's definitely not about loading up your garage with inventory or high-volume reselling. It's just members buying exactly what they personally consume. Finally, we've got to touch on the Academy's core philosophy: education before opinion. Because of overlapping buzzwords, people constantly confuse this with traditional network marketing or direct sales. So here's my challenge to you. Are your assumptions based on how this model actually works, or just on what you've historically heard? You really have to understand the actual mechanics before you can intelligently evaluate it. Now that you have the foundational facts to evaluate this model intelligently, let's dive straight into today's Academy conversation.
Now let's welcome our guests, Alex and Emma. What a fascinating topic we have today. Take it away, you guys.
If you grab a $10 bottle of premium shampoo off a retail store shelf today, there's a very good chance that like $8 of your money is going to people who had absolutely nothing to do with actually making it.
Yeah, it is. It's essentially the invisible tax of the modern supply chain. I mean, you are funding this massive, sprawling architecture of middlemen just for the privilege of putting that bottle in your cart.
Right. Well, welcome back to the deep dive. Today, we're looking at a really fascinating educational framework from the Total Wellness Solutions Academy Network.
Yeah, the series is called Series 1, Drawing the Line, Understanding Consumer Direct Marketing.
Exactly. And our mission for you today is to really look under the hood of that invisible tax we just mentioned and completely demystify what consumer direct marketing, or CDM, actually is as a structural alternative.
And I think it is crucial to state right up front what this deep dive is not.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, this is not a sales pitch. We aren't here to, persuade you to join a network or buy a specific product today. We are strictly following the Academy's core philosophy, which is education before opinion.
Which is just incredibly refreshing, honestly. I mean, we live in an era where people form these ironclad opinions based on like a passing headline or some vague assumption they heard from a friend.
Right, yeah.
So our goal today is to look objectively at how the specific business model functions, like mechanically, so you can evaluate it intelligently for yourself.
Because if you don't understand how the gears turn, you really cannot accurately assess if the machine works.
Okay, let's unpack this. To really understand what consumer direct marketing is, the source material suggests we first have to understand what it replaces.
Right, the baseline.
Yeah, we have to look really closely at the traditional retail supply chain.
So let's trace the actual economics of that $10 bottle of shampoo you mentioned earlier.
Yeah, let's do it.
It starts with the manufacturer, obviously. But in the traditional model, the manufacturer doesn't sell to you.
No, of course not.
Right. They sell to a national or a regional distributor.
And that distributor is taking this massive volume of product, breaking it down, and then moving it to a network of warehouses.
Yeah, and warehousing is heavily, heavily capital intensive. I mean, think about it. You are paying for commercial real estate, climate control, logistics software, security.
Yeah, all the overhead.
Exactly. Plus shrink, which is the industry term for like theft or damage, and insurance. And the crazy part is none of those things improve the quality of the shampoo.
Right. It doesn't make your hair any cleaner.
Exactly. But they all inflate the price.
So from the warehouse, the product is eventually trucked to a retail store.
Yep.
And then it just sits in retail purgatory, basically, tying up capital while the manufacturer prays that a television ad drives enough foot traffic to clear the inventory before it expires.
Oh, and not to mention the slotting fees.
Wait, right. The premium shelf space?
Yeah. A lot of people don't realize this, but brands actually pay retail stores a massive premium just to have their product placed at eye level.
Wow, yeah.
So you have the manufacturer, the distributor, the warehouse, the trucking logistics,
Yeah.
and the retail store itself. And every single one of them is taking a profit margin.
It's like driving on a highway to get to your destination, but you have to stop and pay a toll to 5 different people before you even arrive.
That is a great way to look at it.
You've got the distributor toll booth, the warehouse toll booth, the trucking toll booth, the retail store toll booth.
And the heaviest toll booth of all is customer acquisition cost.
Oh, yeah.
Because the traditional system relies massively on traditional advertising. I mean, think about what it actually takes to convince you, the consumer, to walk into a specific store and pick a specific brand of shampoo off a shelf of, like, 50 other competing brands.
Right. It requires television commercials, digital ad campaigns, influencer endorsements, billboard space.
Exactly. And all of that marketing overhead is baked directly into the price you pay at the register.
So when you trace the journey backward, you are really just a wallet passing through at the very end of this bloated chain.
Pretty much.
I mean, you go to a store, you buy a thing, you leave. It's so transactional. The store doesn't really know you. The warehouse doesn't know you. And the manufacturer certainly doesn't know you. You are just the final variable in a highly impersonal, highly inefficient equation.
Yeah. But, if we know this system is so wildly bloated, why do we tolerate it?
Because it is all we have ever known.
Right. Exactly. It's
Well-
highly visible, it's familiar, and human beings generally just don't question the infrastructure they were born into.
Which brings us to the alternative, the consumer direct marketing alternative.
Right.
Because the CDM model fundamentally changes the supply chain by entirely bypassing all those intermediaries. It creates a direct factory-to-consumer journey.
Yeah, the manufacturer produces the item, and it ships directly to the consumer's door. That's it. No regional distributors, no third-party warehouses holding inventory for months on end, no retail stores with those crazy expensive commercial leases.
So if you take a sledgehammer to all those toll booths, you create an expressway.
I like that, yeah.
But, and this is a big but, that introduces a massive logistical problem.
Oh, absolutely.
Because if there are no retail storefronts, you have zero organic foot traffic. You are virtually invisible to the general public. So how does a company actually survive, let alone grow, without that physical presence?
The text points out 3 main reasons this happens with CDM specifically. Overlapping terminology, historical perceptions, and just a simple lack of a clear definition.
Let's pull apart that overlapping terminology first, because words like direct, referral, network, and marketing, they're completely ubiquitous now.
They're everywhere.
They are thrown around by every tech startup, app, and business model out there right now.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, think about how mental shortcuts work. When you hear the phrase buying directly and getting paid for referrals, your brain immediately opens a mental file folder labeled conventional network marketing or multi-level marketing.
Yeah, MLM.
Exactly. Why? Because for most people, that is literally the only historical reference point they have for a business model that operates outside of a traditional retail store.
Which perfectly explains the historical perceptions part. We are bringing the heavy, often negative past baggage from completely different business models and projecting it onto this one simply because they share a couple of buzzwords.
Yes.
Like, we have experienced the aggressive sales pitch from an acquaintance, so our brain creates a defense mechanism and says, this must be exactly that same threat.
And that defense mechanism is triggered primarily because of the third reason, a lack of accurate definition.
Right. People just don't know the terms.
Most people have simply never heard this specific term, consumer direct marketing. Because there's a void of accurate information, they instinctively categorize it under more familiar yet inaccurate labels.
They fill in the blanks with what they know.
Right. They mistake the factory-to-consumer flow of CDM for the inventory-loading, middleman-heavy models of the past. They basically judge the machine they're looking at by the flaws of a completely different machine.
Which is exactly why the Total Wellness Solutions Academy Network created this Drawing the Line series in the first place.
It was desperately needed.
Yeah, and they highlight a foundational philosophy in the text that I think is crucial for anyone trying to navigate modern information.
Well, by engineering an entirely different acquisition engine. And the source document breaks down the core pillars of the CDM model here, starting with membership-based access.
Okay, so instead of public retail access, where, anyone just wanders off the street into a store, consumers join a structured community.
So we have factory direct, we have membership, and we have word of mouth. The fourth pillar highlighted in the text is long-term relationships.
Right, which is a really stark contrast to traditional retail's highly transactional nature.
Because traditional retail doesn't really care about the relationship as much.
Not at all. When you rely on massive advertising, you can totally afford one-off purchases. You buy an end cap display at a grocery store, a customer grabs the item on impulse, and if they never buy it again, the store doesn't really care as long as the next ad brings in a new customer.
But without that constant barrage of top-of-funnel advertising, an impulse buy model just completely collapses.
Precisely. If your entire awareness engine is word of mouth, the underlying product has to be good enough to generate sustained retention.
These people won't recommend garbage to their friends.
Exactly. You need consumers to willingly reorder directly from the factory month after month. The viability of the factory relies entirely on building a long-term relationship with the end user rather than just a fleeting transaction.
That makes perfect logical sense. Factory direct, digital membership tracking, word-of-mouth awareness, and long-term retention.
You're listening to the Total Wellness Solutions Academy. We'll return to today's discussion in just a moment. If you're just joining us, thank you for listening. Stay with us as Alex and Emma continue today's conversation right here on the Total Wellness Solutions streaming audio network.
By establishing a membership, the manufacturer knows exactly who's buying the product.
Right. It removes that anonymity of traditional retail.
Exactly. You aren't just random foot traffic anymore. You are a registered, consistent member of their consumer base. And this allows the company to forecast their production with incredible accuracy.
Which eliminates the waste.
Right. It eliminates the massive waste of overproduction that constantly plagues traditional retail.
Okay, I follow the logic there. But here's the part where my brain immediately goes to some skeptical places when I hear about non-traditional direct business models.
I think I know where you're going with this.
Yeah, the source emphasizes personal consumption as a core pillar.
And it is arguably the most critical pillar of the whole thing.
Hold on, though. When I think of non-retail business models, I usually picture someone desperately trying to hit a sales quota by convincing their friends to buy, like, boxes of product out of their trunk.
Right, the classic hustle.
Yeah. So does personal consumption just mean I have a garage stacked to the ceiling with inventory I have to peddle to my neighbors?
What's fascinating here is that the CDM model structurally prevents exactly what you're describing.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Because it is built strictly on personal consumption, the mechanics are inverted. The members are buying products exclusively for their own households, for their own daily use.
Wait, so the incentive to bulk buy and resell just doesn't exist?
No, not at all. The source is very, very clear on this distinction. It specifically contrasts CDM against models focused on inventory loading.
Inventory loading, right.
Because in an inventory loading model, the financial risk is shifted from the company to the consumer. The company gets paid when the consumer buys $1,000 of product to just sit in their garage.
Oh, I see. So the company basically offloads their warehouse cost onto the individual.
Exactly. But in consumer direct marketing, the company retains the logistical responsibility. They ship directly from the factory to the consumer's door, but only as needed.
Okay, that makes sense.
So when the focus is genuinely on personal consumption, the pressure of traditional salesmanship is completely removed from the consumer base. You aren't buying 50 bottles of shampoo to meet some arbitrary quota. You're buying one bottle because you actually need to wash your hair.
That distinction fundamentally changes the psychology of the model.
It really does.
It shifts the dynamic from, I need you to buy this from me, to just, I'm simply buying this for myself. But, looking at this structurally, it makes me think about a huge application of this, something the source digs into regarding stability. Like, what happens to this model during an economic downturn, during a recession?
Yeah, that is a huge part of the framework, the concept of recession-proof purchases.
Right, because if things get tight, if the economy shrinks, I'm definitely not buying a luxury watch, but I am absolutely still buying toothpaste and shampoo.
Exactly. The purchases are habitual necessities, everyday essentials. And this is a massive structural advantage for the direct-to-consumer model.
How so? Like mechanically speaking?
Well, think about what happens to traditional retail during a recession. Consumer confidence drops, right? People stop wandering into stores to buy discretionary items, so foot traffic plummets. But the retail store still has to pay their massive commercial lease. They still have to pay for the warehouse. The toll booths don't get cheaper just because the economy is bad.
Right. The overhead is fixed, but the revenue drops. That's a disaster.
Exactly. Yeah. But in the CDM model, The core mechanism is personal consumption of everyday essentials, things people have to buy anyway, regardless of what the stock market is doing.
So the demand doesn't vanish.
It doesn't. And because the company has eliminated all those middleman markups, the retail toll booths, the consumer is getting better value on those essential goods, which is exactly what people look for during a recession.
Wow, so the purchase itself is essentially insulated from the economic shock. It's a recession-proof purchase.
Yes, precisely. The company survives because demand for basic necessities remains steady. And the consumer wins because they aren't paying the invisible tax to a bloated supply chain when their own budget is tight.
That is brilliant. It makes the whole membership structure incredibly resilient. But that actually brings me back to my earlier question about growth.
Okay.
If I am just buying one bottle of shampoo for myself, for my own personal consumption, my incentive to suddenly become a brand evangelist to my friends is pretty low compared to someone whose entire livelihood depends on moving a garage full of inventory. Doesn't this model naturally bottleneck its own growth?
That is where we have to look at how the capital is redirected. And this brings us to the third core pillar, word-of-mouth referrals.
Okay.
Because the company has zeroed out their traditional customer acquisition cost, meaning they are buying zero television ads, they are paying for zero billboard space, they have this massive pool of freed-up capital.
The $8 from the $10 shampoo.
Yes, exactly. And they redirect that capital into two very specific buckets. The first is research and development for product quality, which we'll definitely touch on later.
Right.
And the second bucket is revenue sharing with the actual members who refer others.
Oh, I see. So instead of paying an advertising agency millions of dollars, just hoping someone pays attention to a commercial, the company relies on the lived experience of its members. And it incentivizes them economically to share it.
Right. If a member uses a product, again, purely for their personal consumption and genuinely values it, they recommend the membership to someone else. The company takes the money they would have spent on an ad campaign and pays it as a referral commission to the member instead.
So the organic sharing just completely replaces the advertising agency.
Exactly.
You're listening to the Total Wellness Solutions Academy. We'll return to today's discussion in just a moment. Once again, if you're just joining us, welcome to our broadcast. It's listeners like you who inspire conversation like these. If you're enjoying today's conversation, be sure to follow our channel and join us when we go live for future Academy discussions. And now, back to our program, already in progress.
Which ties perfectly into the final pillar, the text outlines, which is long-term relationships.
Because when you remove the retail transaction, that anonymous buy it and leave mentality, the business basically has no choice but to focus on sustained customer connections.
They need you to stay a member. I mean, think about it. If you refer a friend, but that friend buys one bottle of shampoo and never comes back, the referral doesn't actually generate sustainable revenue for anyone.
Right. Traditional retail thrives on the one-off sale. If you buy a product and never return to that specific store, the store still made its initial markup.
Yep, they got their toll.
But a membership-based direct model survives entirely on retention. It forces the company to engineer an experience in a product line that keeps you consistently satisfied over the long term. Lifetime value becomes literally the only metric that matters.
And going back to what we were just talking about, this is why the recession-proof aspect is so vital. If the products aren't everyday essentials that people consume and reorder monthly, you can't build that long-term retention.
Right. You can't have a long-term relationship built on buying a refrigerator. You buy it once every 10 years.
Exactly. The model requires high-quality consumable goods to function.
When we lay out the mechanics like a factory direct, membership access, strictly personal use, word of mouth over traditional ads, recession-proof stability, and long-term retention, it sounds incredibly logical.
It does.
Honestly, it sounds like a much more efficient way to run an economy. So why is it that people are often incredibly confused by consumer direct marketing? I mean, why is there so much resistance?
Yeah, that is the psychological crux of this whole Drawing the Line series.
Right.
Human beings generally hate nuance. We instinctively categorize things we don't immediately understand into boxes we already recognize. And the source breaks down three main reasons for this public misunderstanding, starting with overlapping terminology.
Which makes sense. Words like direct, network, referral, or membership, they're tossed around in so many different contexts across the business world.
Exactly. I mean, a traditional multi-level marketing company might use some of those words. A direct sales company might use them, and a consumer direct marketing company uses them. So when the language overlaps, it completely blurs the structural lines for the average person.
It's like trying to explain cloud computing to someone who only understands a local hard drive.
Oh, that's a good comparison.
Right, because they both save your files, they both use folders,
Yeah.
and you click the exact same save icon on your screen, so the terminology overlaps perfectly.
Right.
But structurally, one physical disk is sitting on your desk, and the other relies on a massive decentralized network of remote servers. If you evaluate cloud storage by desperately looking for the physical disk drive on your laptop, you are going to think the system is completely broken.
That is a phenomenal analogy.
Yeah.
You are using the vocabulary of the old system to judge the architecture of a completely different system. So let's synthesize the journey we've just mapped out for you, the listener. We started by examining the immense gravity of traditional retail.
Right, that heavy compounding reliance on distributors, giant regional warehouses, expensive physical storefronts.
And the massive advertising budgets required to fuel highly transactional purchases.
Exactly. And then we dissected how consumer direct marketing completely removes that traditional infrastructure. It constructs this distinct factory-to-consumer pathway.
Which requires a digital membership system to track lineage, utilizes incentivized word-of-mouth referrals to replace traditional ad spend, and survives entirely by cultivating long-term customer relationships through actual product quality.
Spot on. We also drew a very hard mechanical line on personal consumption.
Yes, that was huge.
It is strictly about buying what you organically need for your own household. Structural guardrails prevent you from stacking your garage full of inventory to act as an amateur retailer.
The central takeaway from the Drawing the Line series is an operational mantra that applies far beyond just business models, really. Understanding must precede evaluation.
You cannot judge the gears of a machine until you know what the machine was actually built to do.
Right.
You have to strip away the baggage of overlapping terminology and historical assumptions to just look objectively at the mechanics.
It forces a genuine paradigm shift in how you view the modern flow of goods.
It really does.
Which leaves me with a final, broader thought for you to mull over. We've been discussing this in the context of one specific business structure, but let's zoom out and look at the macro implications.
Okay, if we scale this concept.
Imagine if the heavy reliance on traditional advertising and physical retail intermediaries were gradually removed from the vast majority of things we buy. If the global supply chain slowly shifted toward a direct factory-to-consumer model based on tracked relationships rather than anonymous retail transactions, how would that fundamental shift change the balance of economic power between everyday consumers and giant retail corporations?
That is a massive question. It would completely redefine who holds the influence over product development and, critically, where the massive margins of the global supply chain actually flow.
And that leads directly to the second reason for confusion, which is historical perceptions.
The baggage.
The baggage, exactly. We all carry preconceived notions. Human beings rely on pattern recognition to survive. It is an evolutionary shortcut. So when we encounter something new that sounds even vaguely familiar to a negative past experience, our brain just jumps to immediate conclusions to protect us.
Oh, for sure. We've all got that story of a coworker aggressively pitching us in a break room, or like the high-pressure sales pitch disguised as a dinner party.
Right. And if someone has had a frustrating experience with an aggressive inventory loading sales model in, say, 2014, their brain immediately overlays that specific negative experience onto CDM.
Even though the structures are totally different.
Exactly. Even though the complete absence of inventory loading is foundational to CDM, the pattern recognition triggers a defense mechanism anyway.
We let our historical baggage dictate our evaluation before we even look at the mechanics, which, is a very human thing to do, but it makes for absolutely terrible critical thinking.
Yeah, it does.
And I assume that is what drives the third point in the formwork. Lack of definition.
Yes.
You're listening to the Total Wellness Solutions Academy. We'll return to today's final segment in just a moment. Thank you for joining our broadcast. We hope you found this conversation informative, thought-provoking, and worthwhile. Be sure to follow our broadcast and let us know if you have any questions or suggestions for future topics. And now, back to our concluding segment of this program's discussion.
Because consumer direct marketing isn't a universally known term yet. It is not taught in standard high school economics classes alongside traditional retail supply chains. And because there is a vacuum of clear definition, people instinctively lump it in with more familiar, yet wholly inaccurate labels.
Here's where it gets really interesting. The Academy's central thesis in this document is that without a clear definition of the mechanics, specifically that factory-to-consumer flow and the strict adherence to personal consumption, a fair evaluation of the model is literally impossible.
Yeah, you are evaluating a ghost.
Yeah.
You are critiquing what you assume the model is rather than interrogating what it actually is.
Right. You're looking for the local hard drive while standing in a server farm. If you assume CDM involves buying products to resell at a massive markup out of your trunk, you will evaluate it as a flawed, high-pressure sales model.
Of course.
But if you understand that it is strictly about factor-direct personal consumption, your evaluation has to change.
You have to look at the flow chart. Manufacturer directly to consumer. No middlemen. It operates on a completely distinct operational logic.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, it really highlights how lazy our analytical skills can become when we are just overwhelmed with information. We just want to put complex systems into a neat little box so we can move on with our day.
This raises an important question about how we process new information in today's economy. I mean, how often do we judge systems, any systems really, not just business models, before we actually understand their underlying mechanics?
All the time.
Yeah. In a world of severe information overload, taking the time to define boundaries, to literally draw the line, is an essential skill for critical thinking.
That goes right back to the Academy's philosophy, doesn't it? Education before opinion.
Exactly.
It is giving yourself the intellectual permission to say, I actually don't know how the architecture of this works yet. Let me investigate the mechanics.
It requires a willingness to temporarily suspend your historical perceptions. You really have to put the flowchart of the traditional model, those 5 expensive toll booths side by side with the expressway model.
It forces you to ask where your money is actually going when you swipe your credit card. Are you paying for the actual chemical formulation of the shampoo, or are you paying for the warehouse lease, the trucking fuel, the retail shelf space, and the celebrity endorsement on the commercial?
Right. And by understanding the deliberate absence of those retail intermediaries, you start to truly grasp the economic efficiency of the CDM model and why it creates those recession-proof dynamics we discussed.
So what does this all mean? Why should you, the listener, care about supply chain logistics, inventory loading, and overlapping terminology?
Yeah.
Because navigating today's economy requires looking beneath the surface of how businesses operate. Understanding these mechanics empowers you to make financial decisions based on structural facts, not just historical hearsay or sloppy jargon.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Knowledge is only valuable when it is clearly defined and accurately applied. When you truly understand the structural distinction of consumer direct marketing, you are no longer at the mercy of common misconceptions. You can evaluate the machine based on how the gears actually turn.
It is a membership-based factory direct system driven entirely by personal use.
And I think there is one final thought from this framework that really lingers for me, especially when we consider where the capital is redirected.
Oh, go for it.
If a business model completely eliminates traditional advertising, like if they structurally refuse to pay for commercials or billboards or premium slotting fees in stores, and they rely entirely on word-of-mouth referrals and long-term customer retention to survive, what does that imply about the necessary quality of the products themselves?
Oh, wow. That is a great point.
Right. If a company's entire survival depends on you liking a product enough to keep ordering it directly month after month and voluntarily recommending it to your network, the product simply cannot afford to be mediocre.
It can't.
When a product cannot hide behind a multi-million-dollar marketing campaign or flashy retail packaging, it just has to speak for itself.
It has to actually deliver on its promise.
Yeah.
Because there is no expensive toll booth masking the experience. It lives or dies on its own merit. That is a brilliant way to look at it.
Well, thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. Keep questioning the structures around you, keep looking under the hood of the systems you interact with every day, and remember education before opinion. We'll see you next time.
Thank you for joining us today. We hope today's conversation gave you something worth thinking about. Join us again next time as we continue exploring ideas that help families improve their overall wellness by shopping smarter and building better financial futures. Until then, take care.